The morning light came through the thin curtains of a small apartment. It made soft lines on the old furniture and the faded wallpaper. Quiet sounds from the busy street came through the little cracks in the window. An old clock on the wall ticked, steady and slow. Mrs. Clara, a 70-year-old woman, found mornings hard now. Her body was tired and sick. She lay in bed for a few more minutes, enjoying the quiet before the pain started. When she sat up, her joints hurt. It reminded her that her sickness, liver cancer, was still there and getting worse. She took a deep breath and reached for her medicine on the nightstand. Her thin fingers shook as she opened the bottle. The pills made a little sound as they hit the glass. That sound reminded her she needed medicine every day now. She took the pills with a sip of water. Her throat was dry from sleeping. Just like every morning, Clara looked at a photo on her nightstand. It was a picture of her younger self standing outside the school where she taught for over 30 years. In the photo, her eyes looked happy and full of pride. She loved teaching children in her neighborhood. But that happy time felt far away now, like a dream she could never get back. Her savings were almost gone because she had to pay so much for her medical care. The help she got from the government was only just enough to pay her rent and buy food. It wasn't enough for the treatments she really needed. Clara let out a long sigh and slowly pushed herself up. Her hands held the bed for support. Then she sat down in her wheelchair. She had been using it for 6 months now. At first, she didn't want to, but her body got too weak. She had no other choice. She rolled herself to the small kitchen. There, she made a simple breakfast, just toast and tea. Her hands shook as she spread the butter. The warm tea made her feel a little better. This morning routine helped keep sad thoughts away. But soon, her mind went back to her problems. She couldn't pay for the full chemotherapy treatment the doctors said she needed. She didn't go to the hospital often anymore, not because she was better, but because she didn't want to owe more money. Clara didn't want to die in a hospital bed with tubes and machines. She wanted to stay at home, in her own space, with her memories. After breakfast, Clara felt like going outside. She hadn't been to the park in weeks. She missed the sunshine and the sound of birds. The doctors had told her to stay away from public places because she could get sick easily. But she was tired of staying inside all the time. She grabbed a light shawl, put it on her shoulders, and rolled herself to the door. The elevator going down was slow and made creaky sounds. When she got to the street, she moved forward with quiet strength. The park wasn't far. On the way, she passed the grocery store where she used to shop, the library she used to visit, and the cafe where she met friends for tea. Most of those friends are gone now. Some had moved. Others had died. It made her feel sad that she had outlived so many people she cared about. When Clara got to the park, she stopped to look around. The trees swayed gently in the breeze. Their leaves made soft whispering sounds. The air smelled like grass and flowers, not like the hospital or medicine. She rolled along the paved path, feeling peaceful. The sun warmed her face, and for the first time in many days, she felt a little happy. She found a bench by the pond and parked her wheelchair next to it. Ducks floated across the water. Their reflections shimmered. Nearby, children were playing and laughing. Clara smiled a little, remembering the joy she felt as a teacher. She had spent her life teaching and helping children, hoping to make the world a better place. Now she wondered if it really made a difference. While she was thinking, she didn't notice a man coming closer. She heard the loud roar of a motorcycle. It got louder as he rode into the park. Clara looked up and felt a little scared. The man parked his motorcycle and got off. He was tall, strong-looking, and had a frown on his face. His leather jacket had patches, but Clara couldn't read them. He looked angry. She quickly looked away, hoping he would leave. But he didn't. He walked closer. His boots crunched on the gravel path. "Hey, he said in a rough voice. Clara's heart beat faster. She tried to stay calm, even though she was nervous. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, pointing to the bench. Clara nodded slowly, hoping not to make him mad. He sat down. The bench made a creaking sound under his weight. For a while, no one said anything. Only the birds and the children's laughter filled the air. Clara looked straight ahead, trying to enjoy the peaceful view. Then the man spoke. "You come here often?" Clara waited before answering. She glanced at him and saw he was still looking at her. "I used to," she said quietly. "Not as much anymore." The man gave a cold laugh. "Figures. You don't look like you belong out here." Clara felt her stomach twist. His words were mean, and she had heard things like this before. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. The man shrugged. "Just saying, people like you don't belong in places like this." Clara gripped the armrests of her wheelchair. She knew what he meant, and it hurt. "I have just as much right to be here as anyone else," she said strongly. The man's face turned darker. He leaned in closer and whispered, "Maybe you do, but that doesn't mean I have to like it." Clara's heart pounded. She looked around, hoping someone would help, but no one noticed. She felt all alone. She was weak, sitting in her wheelchair, and this man was being mean. Suddenly, he stood up. He was tall and looked angry. "You should leave," he said, "before someone makes you." Clara looked him in the eyes. She had been through so much. She wasn't going to let this man scare her. "I'm not going anywhere," she said firmly. The man frowned even more. Clara wondered if he would try to hurt her. Her hands tightened on the wheels, ready to leave if she had to. But before anything happened, someone else appeared in the distance. The sun was getting lower in the sky. Long shadows stretched across the path as Clara slowly moved along the way she knew so well. Her thoughts went back and forth, from happy memories to the pain in her body. She had come to the park for peace. But something felt different today. The air felt a little colder, even though the sun was still warm. As she passed the children playing near the pond, she thought again about being a teacher. She had been proud of her job, proud of helping kids dream big dreams. But now those dreams felt far away, covered by the sadness she carried. Then she heard it again, a loud engine, growing louder. The deep rumble shook the calm feeling of the park. Mrs. Clara looked up. She saw where the loud noise was coming from. A motorcycle was speeding down the small path in the park. It was going fast and moving around people in a wild way. The man riding the bike wore a leather jacket with many patches. His helmet covered most of his face. As he got closer, he slowed down and stopped just a few steps away from where Mrs. Clara was sitting. He turned off the engine quickly. Mrs. Clara's heart beat faster. Something about the man made her feel worried. He took off his helmet. His face looked rough and mean, with a sneaky smile that never seemed to go away. His eyes looked around the park. Then he stared right at her, and his smile got bigger in a mean way. "Hey, lady!" he shouted, his voice rough and teasing. Mrs. Clara looked away, hoping he would go away. But instead, he started walking toward her slowly. Each of his steps made a crunching sound on the gravel. "I'm talking to you," he said. He stopped right in front of her wheelchair. Mrs. Clara took a deep breath. She tried to stay calm. She had faced mean people before, but this man felt scarier than others. "I'm just here to get some fresh air," she said softly, trying to be nice. The man laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It made her feel cold inside. "Fresh air, huh? Funny. I didn't think someone like you would come to a place like this." Mrs. Clara frowned. "Someone like me?" He shrugged. His smile stayed on his face. "Yeah, you know what I mean." She knew what he meant. People had said that before in a mean way. Her heart hurt, but she wouldn't let fear win. She sat up straight and looked him in the eyes. "I have the same right to be here as anyone else," she said firmly. The man's smile faded a little. He stepped closer. "Maybe you do, but not everyone wants you here." Mrs. Clara held the arms of her wheelchair tightly. She looked around. The park wasn't very busy. No one was close enough to help. She had to think clearly. "Please leave me alone," she said. "I don't want trouble." The man's smile got bigger. "Trouble? I'm not the one making trouble. I'm just saying what others think." He reached out and flicked her shawl. It fell from her shoulders onto the ground. Mrs. Clara gasped. It was a small thing, but it felt very mean. Slowly, she bent down and picked it up. Her hands were careful and calm. When she sat up, she looked at him again. "I'm not afraid of you," she said quietly. The man's smile disappeared for just a second, then came back even meaner. "Maybe you should be," he said. Suddenly, he shoved her wheelchair. It jerked backward. Mrs. Clara grabbed the armrests, trying to keep herself steady. "What are you doing?" she cried. Her voice shook with fear and anger. The man laughed loudly. The sound bounced around the quiet park. "Just seeing how strong you really are. You talk big for someone in a chair." Mrs. Clara's heart beat fast. She knew she couldn't fight him, but she wasn't going to let him scare her. "You don't scare me," she said, louder this time. The man's laugh stopped. His face turned angry. He stepped even closer. His shadow fell over her. "Maybe you should learn to be quiet," he said in a low, scary voice. He lifted his hand like he was going to hit her. But before he could do anything, a loud voice shouted, "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Mrs. Clara and the man both turned their heads. Someone was walking quickly toward them. It was Jason Statham. He walked fast and looked serious. His eyes stayed on the man the whole time. The air felt tight, like a storm was coming. Jason looked strong and calm, just like in the movies Mrs. Clara had seen. The man sneered. "Who are you supposed to be?" Jason didn't answer right away. He stopped a few steps away. He looked relaxed but ready. He finally said, "I'm someone who doesn't like bullies." The man laughed. "This has nothing to do with you. Go away." Jason looked at Mrs. Clara. He saw she was scared and her clothes were messed up. His jaw tightened. "This is my business," Jason said. The man smiled again. "Yeah? And what are you gonna do about it?" Jason stepped closer. He moved slowly and carefully. "I'll tell you what I'm not gonna do. I'm not gonna stand here and let you hurt someone who didn't do anything wrong." The man's hands turned into fists. "You think you're a hero?" Jason didn't move. "I think I know the difference between right and wrong. And you're doing something wrong." The park was very quiet. Mrs. Clara held her breath, waiting to see what would happen. Then the man jumped at Jason. But Jason was ready. He moved to the side and grabbed the man's arm. With a quick move, he twisted the arm behind the man's back. The man yelled in pain and tried to escape, but Jason held him still. "I think we're done here," Jason said calmly. He slowly pushed the man down to the ground. Then he looked at Mrs. Clara. "Are you okay?" Mrs. Clara nodded slowly. Her voice was shaky but strong. "Yes, thank you." Jason looked at the man again. "You're going to stay right here until the police come." The man grumbled angry words, but he didn't fight back anymore. Mrs. Clara watched as Jason took out his phone and called for help. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe. The sun was setting, and the sky turned golden. Jason stood tall, holding the man down easily. People had started to gather. Some took out their phones and recorded what was happening. Jason didn't look at them. He kept his eyes on the man, making sure he wouldn't move. Mrs. Clara held her shawl tight. Her hands were shaking a little, but her heart felt calm. Jason talked on the phone with the emergency person. His voice was strong and clear. "Yes, I need police and an ambulance at Lakeside Park. There's been an attack. I've stopped the man." He paused and looked at the man. "No, he's not going anywhere." The man squirmed and groaned. "You don't know who I am," the man growled. "You think you're some hero? You have no right to touch me." But Jason stayed calm and strong. He knew he had done the right thing. And Mrs. Clara knew it too. Jason didn't look scared at all. "I have every right to stop someone from hurting another person," he said. His voice was calm and strong, and it made people stop and listen. "You can explain yourself to the police when they get here." The bad man looked around. A big crowd was watching. People had their phones out and were recording everything. He saw there was no way to run or hide. His face showed he was getting worried. Mrs. Clara, the older lady who had been hurt, finally spoke. Her voice was soft and shaky. "Thank you," she said, looking at Jason. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." Jason looked at her with kindness. "You don't need to thank me. I just did what anyone should do." He looked around at the people watching. His voice was calm, but a little sad. Too many people just stood there and didn't help. Some people looked down, feeling bad. They stopped recording. Others kept filming, knowing the video would soon be all over the news. Jason bent down next to Mrs. Clara. His voice was gentle. "Are you hurt? Do you need help from a doctor?" Mrs. Clara shook her head. "I'm okay. Just shaking a little," she said. Then she added, "I've been through worse." Jason looked worried when she said that, but he didn't ask more questions. He nodded and said, "The ambulance is coming. Let's make sure you get checked out just in case." They heard the sound of sirens in the distance. The crowd moved to make space. 2 police cars and an ambulance came, their lights flashing in the evening light. 2 police officers got out of the first car. One was tall and looked serious. He walked over to Jason and the man Jason had stopped. The other officer, a woman, kept her hand near her belt where her handcuffs were. "What's going on here?" the tall officer asked. He looked at Jason, then at the man on the ground, then at Mrs. Clara. Jason let go of the man's wrist and stood up straight. He looked the officer in the eyes. "This man hurt that lady," he said, pointing to Mrs. Clara. "I stopped him. It's all on camera, and there are lots of people who saw it." The officer looked at the man on the ground. "Is that true?" he asked. The man didn't answer. He just gave Jason a mean look. He knew not to say anything that could get him in more trouble. But everyone already saw what he did. The woman police officer stepped forward with handcuffs. "Turn around and put your hands behind your back," she said. The man waited for a second, then slowly did what she said. As she put the cuffs on, he looked at Jason angrily. "This isn't over," he said. Jason didn't answer. He looked back at Mrs. Clara as the doctors came over. One of them knelt down and started checking her. "Do you feel hurt anywhere? Are you dizzy or having trouble breathing?" the medic asked. Mrs. Clara shook her head. "No, I'm fine. Just a little shaken up," she said. Jason stood nearby, watching carefully. He wanted to make sure she was okay. He felt a need to protect her. There was something strong about her, even though she was small and older. The medic looked at Jason. "She looks okay now, but we think she should go to the hospital to be sure." Mrs. Clara shook her head hard. No hospitals. I'm fine. Jason looked worried again. He bent down beside her and spoke quietly. Are you sure? It's important to make sure you're really okay. Mrs. Clara looked at him. Her eyes were strong. Hospitals cost money. I've seen too many doctors and too many bills. I just want to go home. Jason nodded. Okay. But if you feel worse later, promise me you'll go to the doctor. I promise, Mrs. Clara said softly. The police talked to people and asked for the videos they had taken. The man who hurt Mrs. Clara was taken to the police car. As he was led away, he looked at Jason one more time with an angry face. Jason watched him go. His face was serious. He knew the man would go to jail, but he also knew there were many more people like him. The fight to stop hate was not over. Mrs. Clara moved in her wheelchair and looked at Jason. Thank you again, she said. Her voice was warm and kind. I don't know how to repay you. Jason smiled a little. You don't need to. Just take care of yourself. Mrs. Clara gave a tiny smile. Her eyes were shiny with tears. You're a good man. The world needs more people like you. Jason smiled more. We just need more people to do the right thing when it matters. The police and ambulance drove away. The crowd started to leave too. Jason stood next to Mrs. Clara and watched the sunset. The park got quiet again. But everyone who saw what happened would remember it. Later, the video of what happened was everywhere online. It showed Jason Statham helping an older black woman from a mean and hurtful man. People called Jason a hero. They said he was brave and kind. Many people were happy about what he did. They were angry that no one else had helped at first. The video was shared millions of times. People used hashtags to support Mrs. Clara and stop racism. But for Mrs. Clara, all this attention was too much. She sat in her small living room and looked at her phone. It kept buzzing with messages. People said kind things, offered help with money for doctors, and shared their own sad stories. It was nice, but it was also a little too much. She didn't ask to be famous. She just wanted a quiet life. Someone knocked on her door. She rolled her wheelchair to the door and opened it. Her neighbor Emma was there, looking worried. Clara, have you seen the news? Emma asked. She showed her phone. The video of Jason helping was playing. You're everywhere. Everyone's talking about you. Mrs. Clara sighed. I've seen it. I don't know how to feel about it. Emma came inside and put a gentle hand on Clara's shoulder. You should be proud. What happened was awful, but you're helping people see they can't get away with that. You're giving people hope. I never wanted to be a symbol, Mrs. Clara said softly. I just wanted to live my life in peace. Emma nodded. I know. But sometimes, we don't choose when we make a difference. It just happens. That night, Mrs. Clara sat in her chair and looked out the window. The street was quiet. She felt tired. She thought about everything that had happened. She had spent her life teaching children to be kind and fair. But now, at 70 years old, she was still dealing with the same problems. Her phone rang. She didn't want to answer at first. Then she picked it up. Hello, she said. Hello, Mrs. Clara. This is Rachel Brooks from Channel 9 News. We'd love to have you on our show to talk about what happened in the park. Your story has inspired so many people. We think it's important to hear from you. Mrs. Clara held the phone tightly. I'm thankful for the offer, she said, but I don't think I'm the right person for this. I'm just an old lady trying to live my life. With all respect, you are much more than that, Rachel replied. You've become a voice for people who are treated unfairly. Your story is important, and we want to help you tell it. Mrs. Clara stayed quiet. She wasn't sure. The idea of being on TV made her nervous. But she also knew that many people were looking up to her. They needed hope. "I'll think about it," she finally said. "Thank you for the call." After the call ended, she sat back in her chair, deep in thought. She never thought she'd be in this position. But maybe Emma was right. Maybe she needed to speak up, not just for herself, but for others who couldn't. The next morning, someone knocked on her door. She opened it and her eyes grew wide with surprise. Jason Statham was standing there with a warm smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Clara," he said kindly. "I hope I'm not bothering you." "Jason Statham?" she said, still trying to believe he was really there. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to check on you," he said. "After everything that happened, I couldn't stop thinking about you." "Are you okay?" Mrs. Clara let him come in. "I'm doing the best I can," she said. Jason sat across from her with a kind look on his face. "I saw the news. So many people have heard your story. They're listening to you, Mrs. Clara. You can help a lot of people." She shook her head. "I'm just an old woman with many health problems. I don't know what I can do." Jason leaned closer and looked into her eyes. "You've already done more than you know. People see you as strong and brave. They need someone like you to show them they're not alone." Mrs. Clara looked at him closely. "Why does this matter so much to you?" she asked. Jason's eyes softened. "Because I've seen a lot of hate in the world. I've seen people hurt for being different. That's not right. If I can help make things better, I want to. But I can't do it by myself. We need real stories and real people like you." Mrs. Clara felt a lump in her throat. She didn't think someone like Jason, who she had only seen in movies, would care so much. "I've spent my whole life trying to teach people to be kind," she said quietly. "Maybe it's time I start speaking out again." Jason nodded. "The world needs people like you. And if you choose to speak, I'll be right there with you." As they sat together in her living room, Mrs. Clara started to feel a new feeling inside: purpose. She saw that her voice still mattered. She still had the power to help others. The fear she had felt for so long started to go away. Now she felt strong and ready. By the time Jason left, Mrs. Clara had made her decision. She would go on the news. Not for fame or attention, but to help people by sharing her story. That evening, she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her shawl. Her reflection looked back at her. The lines on her face showed a life full of both hard times and good times. "I'm not done yet," she whispered. She was ready to face the world again. The bright studio lights were strong on Mrs. Clara's face as she sat in the chair, waiting for the interview to start. Her hands were in her lap, fingers holding each other nervously. The sound of people setting up the cameras faded away as her thoughts filled her mind. She hadn't been in front of a camera in years, not since her teaching days when school events were shown on the news. But this time felt very different. Now, the whole world was watching. Jason Statham had come with her to the studio. He stayed behind the scenes to support her. His being there made her feel calm. He had promised to be there, and he kept his word. That meant so much to her. The producer counted down. 3, 2, 1. The host, a nicely dressed woman with a friendly smile, turned to the camera. "Welcome back to Channel 9 News. Today we have a very special story. You've all seen the video of the brave actor Jason Statham helping someone. But the real heart of this story is Mrs. Clara, a retired teacher who was hurt in a park. She's here with us today to share her story and her message." The camera turned to Mrs. Clara. The host gave her a warm nod. "Thank you for being here, Mrs. Clara." Mrs. Clara took a deep breath. "Thank you for having me," she said. her voice calm even though she felt nervous. The host leaned in. Many people saw the video of what happened to you. Can you tell us what that day was like? Mrs. Clara looked at her hands for a moment, then looked back up. It started like any normal day. I went to the park for some fresh air. I have health problems, and it helps me to get outside. I didn't think anything bad would happen. Her voice shook a little. But a man saw me and got angry just because of how I look. I could see it in his eyes. I've seen that look before. It's a look that says, "You don't belong here." The host's smile turned serious. That must have been very scary. Mrs. Clara nodded. It was. But I've faced this kind of thing before. I've been told I'm not good enough, that I don't deserve the same things as others. I've learned how to live with it. But that day, I felt tired of staying quiet. I don't want to be silent anymore. The host nodded gently. That's a strong thing to say. What do you want people to learn from your story? Mrs. Clara sat up straighter. I want people to know that hate and unfairness have no place in our world. We've made progress, but things like this show we still have work to do. It's not enough to do nothing. We all need to help and speak up for each other. Behind the cameras, Jason watched carefully. He could see how her words touched the people working there. Many of them were nodding, clearly moved. The host leaned forward. You talked about your health problems. Can you tell us more? Mrs. Clara paused, then said, I have liver cancer. I've been fighting it for some time. It's hard, especially when you don't have a lot of money. Medical bills grow fast, and there's not always help. The host looked sad. I'm so sorry to hear that. You've stayed strong through everything. Mrs. Clara gave a small smile. I've learned that strength comes from others. People like Jason helped me when I needed it most. Now I have support from so many kind strangers. That gives me hope. The host glanced at her paper. Speaking of Jason, he said many nice things about you. How has he helped you? Mrs. Clara's smile grew. Jason's help means more than I can say. He didn't have to help me, but he did. And he's still helping, even when no one's watching. That kind of kindness is rare. The host looked at the camera. Jason Statham is not just famous for his movies, she said. He's also a real-life hero. What he did that day made a big difference. And he keeps helping people even when the cameras are off. Then the host looked back at Mrs. Clara and smiled warmly. Do you have something you want to say to the people watching? Mrs. Clara took a deep breath and thought for a moment. Yes, she said. I want everyone to know that their voice matters. It doesn't matter how old you are, what you look like, or where you're from. You can make a difference. Don't be scared to stand up for what's right. And if you see someone who needs help, don't be afraid to help them. We all have a job to make the world a better place. The host nodded kindly. Thank you, Mrs. Clara. Your words are very inspiring. The interview was done, and the producer gave the signal that it was time to stop. The cameras turned off. The host turned to Mrs. Clara again. Thank you for coming. Your story is going to help so many people. Mrs. Clara smiled softly. I really hope so. Just then, Jason Statham walked over to Mrs. Clara. He looked proud and happy. You did amazing, he said, kneeling next to her chair. You spoke from the heart. People needed to hear that. Mrs. Clara reached out and took his hand. Thank you, Jason. I couldn't have done this without you. Jason shook his head. You've always had this strength. I just helped you see it. As they walked out of the studio together, something wonderful happened. People started coming up to Mrs. Clara. They smiled at her. They shook her hand. Some even gave her little hugs. "Thank you for sharing your story," they said. "You're so brave." Mrs. Clara was surprised. She had never been in the spotlight before. But now, people were looking at her with respect. It made her feel something deep inside, something warm and bright. She felt proud, but also humble. She felt like she had a purpose again. That evening, when she got home, her phone would not stop buzzing. She got so many messages. People from all over were saying thank you. They were inspired by her story. Some told her how they had gone through hard times too. Others said her words helped them find their courage. Even more surprising, people started giving money to help with her medical bills. There was a special page set up online, and it kept growing. It made her cry happy tears. She didn't expect it. She never asked for it. But people were giving from their hearts. And the messages? They meant the most. People were saying things like, "I was scared to speak up, but now I feel brave. You reminded me to believe in myself again. My daughter watched your interview and now wants to help others too." Mrs. Clara smiled as she read each one. Her heart felt full. She had touched so many lives, and that made her feel stronger than ever before. She whispered to herself the words she used to tell her students. The world changes when we choose to change it, one voice at a time. A few days later, something big happened. People planned a gathering outside City Hall. It was to show support for kindness and fairness. And it was all because of Mrs. Clara's story. Mrs. Clara sat in her wheelchair near the edge of the big crowd. She looked around with wide eyes. There were so many people. Families with children, students, teachers, grandparents, workers, and neighbors, all standing together. They held signs that said things like, "Kindness wins. Justice for all. Thank you, Mrs. Clara. Hope is stronger than hate." Some people had her picture. Others had written her words on posters. It was more than Mrs. Clara ever imagined. Jason Statham stood next to her, always watching out for her. He wanted to make sure she felt safe and supported. "Are you okay, Mrs. Clara?" he asked gently. She nodded. Her hands were shaking a little in her lap, but she smiled. "I'm okay, Jason. Just a little overwhelmed." "It's a lot." Jason nodded. "That makes sense. But look at what you've done. All these people are here because of you. You've given them hope." Mrs. Clara looked out at the crowd again. It was amazing. She saw people of every age and every background. Some had tears in their eyes. Others looked brave and ready to take a stand. The crowd made her feel proud and humble all at once. Then the mayor came up to the microphone on the stage. His voice came through big speakers. "Thank you all for coming today. We are here not only to say no to hate, but also to say yes to love, kindness, and courage." One woman reminded us how powerful one voice can be. "Let's welcome Mrs. Clara." The crowd clapped so loudly it echoed through the streets. Jason gently placed his hand on Mrs. Clara's shoulder. "It's time." With Jason helping, Mrs. Clara rolled her wheelchair onto the stage. As she moved forward, the cheers grew louder. She reached the microphone and took a deep breath. She looked at all the people. At first, she felt nervous. But then she remembered the messages, the smiles, the hugs. She found her strength. "Thank you," she began. "Thank you for being here. I never thought I'd be speaking to a big crowd like this. I'm just an ordinary woman. But I'm also someone who believes in standing up for what's right." The crowd quieted, listening closely. "A few weeks ago, I went to the park to enjoy the sunshine. I didn't expect to face something so mean. I was hurt by hate. But I was helped by someone brave, Jason Statham. I'll always be thankful he stood up for me." The crowd clapped again, and Jason gave her a small nod. "But I want to say this clearly," Mrs. Clara continued. "It shouldn't take someone famous to stop something wrong. It should be all of us. Every single one of us can help make things better." The crowd hummed in agreement. Some people wiped away tears. "I've lived a long life. I've seen good times and hard times. But change doesn't happen by accident. It happens when everyday people like you and me, decide to be kind, brave, and fair." She paused for a moment, breathing in deeply. "I'm not a hero. I'm not a leader. I'm just someone who believes everyone should be treated with love and respect. I'm here today because I refuse to let hate win." The crowd clapped again, but she gently raised her hand. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about all of us. It's about people who have been quiet for too long. It's about kids growing up feeling scared because of how they look or what they believe. That needs to stop." She looked at Jason, who smiled at her proudly. "It's also about those who came before us. The teachers, the helpers, the dreamers. We need to keep going for them, for ourselves, and for the children of tomorrow." Now the crowd was completely silent. Every person listened closely to her words. "I spent my life teaching children to believe in themselves. I told them to treat others with kindness. Now I'm asking you to do the same. Be the person who helps. Be the person who speaks up. Be the person who brings change." Her eyes were full of gentle tears, but her voice stayed strong. "We can't change the past, but we can shape the future. And I believe with all my heart that if we work together, we can build a world full of hope, kindness, and justice." The crowd stood up, clapping and cheering. It was loud and joyful. People waved signs and hugged each other. Mrs. Clara looked out at them and smiled. Jason stepped forward and whispered, "You did it." Mrs. Clara nodded, smiling through her tears. "We did it." Later that night, Mrs. Clara sat in her quiet living room. The city lights twinkled outside her window. Her phone buzzed with more kind messages. People told her how inspired they were. Others gave money to help her. But that wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was the love, the hope, the feeling that people were waking up and standing together. Jason sat across from her, sipping a cup of tea. "You started something big, Mrs. Clara. People are listening." She nodded. "It's not about me. It's about all of us." Jason smiled. "That's what makes it special." For the first time in a long time, Mrs. Clara felt peace in her heart. She knew there were still things to fight for, more stories to tell. But now, she knew she wasn't alone. She looked out at the night sky and whispered the words once more. "The world changes when we choose to change it, one voice at a time." And her voice was just getting started. If you liked this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.